A lie has been circulating for years, not from anyone malicious, just the default narrative around farming income. That narrative insists land, a barn, and rural acreage must exist before any animal ever pays a single dollar. That is simply not true anymore. Under the current system, most people never actually get shown. Right now, people in apartments, HOA neighborhoods, and city suburbs generate $500 to $2,000 monthly. That income comes from animals fitting inside a spare room, a closet, a shed, or even a rooftop. This isn't theory, and it isn't someday. These are real operational systems running inside footprints already owned. Rethinking what counts as usable space is really the starting point for every system covered here. That gap between assumption and actual current reality is exactly where real opportunity tends to hide. The opportunity was never sitting on some rural property 3 counties away from where most people actually live. It sits directly underneath most people right now, completely invisible simply because nobody explained what to put there. 7 complete systems get broken down here, each with real startup cost and monthly income range explained clearly. Space required, legal status in most residential zones, and the one mistake that kills profit before it starts. A closet, a shed, or a spare room quietly holds more income potential than most people ever consider. Numbers like that are easy to dismiss until they get broken down line by line in real detail. The 7th system alone runs entirely indoors, needs no permits in most cities, and outproduces almost everything else. Something worth being direct about before diving in, since most people picture a rural barn full of animals. A property already paid for doing double duty as an income source is hard to beat financially. What follows here is a completely different model built on a principle rarely discussed in farming content anywhere. The most profitable small animal systems were never really about scale. They were always about density instead. Space that already sits unused inside most homes rarely gets considered as a potential income source at all. Profit per square foot matters more than profit per acre, once that lens gets properly applied to everything. Applying that lens changes the entire list of best animals to raise for realistic income potential completely. Most people never look for this kind of opportunity simply because nobody ever framed it this way before. First, Coturnix quail, and the angle most content misses is exactly what makes this the best no-land bird. Breeding decisions made too early are the single most common reason promising systems stall out fast. In most American cities and suburbs, chickens face restrictions or outright bans across residential zoning codes. Roosters specifically stay illegal across the majority of residential zones throughout the entire country currently. Coturnix quail, though, get classified as game birds in most jurisdictions rather than poultry entirely. A modest starting investment lowers the real risk of testing whether any given system actually works. That single legal distinction changes everything for anyone living under typical residential restrictions right now. Living in an HOA neighborhood or a suburb with livestock restrictions still likely allows quail without any permit. Quail fly completely under the regulatory radar in places where every other egg-producing animal gets prohibited. A Coturnix hen starts laying at just 6 to 8 weeks old, compared to 18 to 26 for chickens. A quail lays nearly every single day, producing around 280 to 300 eggs per year. At farmers markets, quail eggs sell for $5 to $8 per dozen under typical local conditions. Starting small and proving a system works tends to beat jumping straight into a large-scale attempt. A small footprint managed well often outproduces a much larger space managed carelessly or without a plan. Density thinking flips the entire conversation away from acreage and toward what a small footprint can actually produce. Specialty grocers, Asian markets, and direct sale push that price to $8 to $12 per dozen instead. Fertile hatching eggs ship for $6 to $15 per dozen, depending on breed and buyer demand. Most people never look for this kind of opportunity, simply because nobody framed it this way before. 50 laying hens in roughly 12 square feet of cage space produce close to 50 eggs daily. That works out to about 4 dozen weekly, generating $100 a week from a spare bedroom. Scaling to 100 birds roughly doubles those same numbers across every metric involved. Monthly income from eggs alone on a 100-bird flock runs $300 to $600. Adding hatching eggs, live chick sales at $3 to $5 each, and dressed meat expands that range further. Dressed quail meat sells for $12 to $16 per pound through direct sale channels locally. The same 100 birds can generate $800 to over $1,200 monthly across all 4 streams combined. Feed cost for 100 quail runs, just $40 to $60 monthly under normal conditions. A footprint most people already own is a far lower barrier to entry than acquiring new rural land. A single legal classification quietly opens doors that stay closed to almost every other backyard bird available. Startup costs, covering cages through incubator and breeding stock, run $200 to $500 total. The biggest mistake involves treating eggs as the only real revenue stream available from this system. A hive's compact footprint hides how many separate products can realistically come from that same small box. Real income sits across all 4 product lines together: eggs, hatching eggs, live chicks, and dressed meat. Local zoning codes rarely get read closely, yet they quietly decide which animals are actually viable. Selling across all 4 turns, a $500 month into a $1,200 month easily. Second, red wiggler worms, easily dismissed as a kid's side hustle or something too boring for real income. Both of those assumptions turn out to be wrong once the actual numbers get examined closely. The vermiculture industry represents a global market worth hundreds of millions of dollars with persistent supply shortages. There are never enough high-quality castings and live worms available to meet existing demand levels. That imbalance represents genuine opportunity for anyone willing to start even a small operation locally. A pound of red wigglers sells for $20 to $40 under typical current market conditions. Predictable weekly output builds trust with buyers faster than sporadic, unpredictable batches ever could. A market with more demand than supply rewards early movers far more than crowded, saturated ones. That kind of daily laying rate is hard to match with any other small bird realistically raised at home. Density thinking flips the conversation away from acreage toward what a small footprint can actually produce. Worm castings sell for $1 to $3 per pound in bulk, or 25 to 50 bagged retail. Worm tea sells as a premium plant supplement, running $5 to $15 per bottle typically. Startup cost includes a plastic storage tote for $20 and free shredded cardboard bedding for the bin. 1 pound of worms costs $30 to $40, bringing total startup cost under $60. That represents possibly the lowest barrier real business startup available anywhere across any industry currently. Worms double their population every 60 to 90 days under decent conditions without much intervention needed. 1 pound becomes 4 pounds within 4 months at essentially zero additional cost involved throughout. Regulatory gaps like this rarely stay secret forever, but plenty of people still haven't caught on yet. A 1,000 worm starter bin generates $60 to $200 monthly once properly established. Scaling to 10,000 worms pushes that range to $300 to $800 monthly. Serious operations running out of a single garage clear $2,000 to $5,000 monthly regularly. Selling into multiple markets simultaneously smooths out demand in a way selling to just one buyer never can. That income comes from selling live worms, premium castings, and blended soil products where real margin lives. Mixing castings with compost, peat moss, and perlite creates a product selling for $10 to $20 per cubic foot. One Arizona worm farm reportedly earns over $1 million annually, mostly from blended soil rather than pure castings. A production cycle measured in weeks rather than months means faster feedback on whether a system works. Waste disposal costs quietly disappear the moment that same material becomes a sellable product instead. The biggest mistake here involves overfeeding, which creates odor, attracts pests, and can kill the entire colony. Feeding only what worms can process within 2 to 3 days avoids that entire problem completely. Third, meat rabbits, quiet and odorless when properly managed, legal in virtually every residential setting nationwide. Rabbits get classified as pets rather than livestock in most jurisdictions, an enormous practical advantage other animals lack. A single doe produces 30 to 40 offspring annually under decent breeding management conditions. Each rabbit reaches harvest weight of 4 to 5 pounds within 8 to 12 weeks of birth. A single legal classification quietly opens doors that stay closed to almost every other backyard bird. Processed rabbit sells for $8 to $12 per pound, direct to consumers under typical local demand. A spare bedroom producing 4 figures monthly sounds unlikely until the actual math gets laid out plainly. Specialty markets pay $15 to $30 per dressed rabbit, depending on breed and regional demand. A starter operation of 3 does, and $1 fits inside a large dog kennel footprint. That same modest setup generates $150 to $250 monthly from meat sales alone. Weekly time commitment, measured in minutes rather than hours, makes a system realistic for a busy schedule. Scaling to 10 does pushes that range up to $500 to $800 monthly instead. Comparing production speed across different birds quickly reveals which one actually fits a fast income goal. Meat represents only one stream though, since rabbit manure sells as cold fertilizer needing no composting. That manure sells for $1 to $3 per pound, directly before each new planting season begins. Breeding stock sells for $50 to $300 per animal, depending on genetics and demand. Live kits sold as pets fetch $25 to $40 each from local buyers regularly. Angora rabbit fiber harvests every 90 days at $10 to $30 per ounce without harming the animal. A diversified rabbit operation pulling from all 4 streams runs $400 to $900 monthly total. 4 separate revenue lines from one flock is exactly the kind of stacking that changes total monthly income. The mistake ending most rabbit operations before profit involves scaling breeding before securing actual buyers first. Rabbits multiply fast, and 25 pounds of monthly meat with no buyer lined up means unsold inventory. Selling across several channels at once protects income when any single buyer slows down temporarily. Lining up the market first and breeding to meet demand rather than ahead of it prevents that trap. Fourth, honeybees, occupying just 4 square feet of space while needing about 30 minutes of weekly attention. A fly that improves pest control while also generating income is a rare double benefit worth noting. That modest footprint generates income from up to 6 separate product streams running simultaneously together. No other single animal unit on this entire list carries that same multi-stream income structure. A healthy hive produces 30 to 60 pounds of honey across a typical productive season. That kind of daily laying rate is hard to match with any other small bird raised at home. Raw local honey sells for $10 to $18 per pound at most farmers markets currently. That works out to $300 to over $1,000 per hive annually from honey alone. Beeswax renders into candles, lip balm, and wood polish, roughly doubling its original raw material value. A shortage this persistent across an entire industry rarely stays hidden once someone actually looks for it. Propolis sells for $30 to $50 per pound to natural health product manufacturers regularly. Price variation across different sales channels rewards anyone willing to sell through more than one outlet. Bee pollen sells for $5 to $10 per pound through similar specialty and health-focused buyers. A single legal loophole can be the entire difference between a viable system and a dead-end idea. Diversifying product types from one animal reduces risk compared to depending on just a single item. Nucleus colonies, starter hive packages sold to new beekeepers each spring, go for $175 to $250 each. 2 hives in a backyard generate $80 to $100 monthly under typical conditions. 5 hives push that range to $200 to $500 monthly across the same setup. 10 hives managed across all product streams generate $500 to $1,500 monthly total. The biggest mistake involves scaling before understanding the underlying biology of how hives actually function. Starting with 2 hives and learning a full season builds real confidence before any further expansion happens. Fifth, black soldier fly larvae, sounding unusual right up until the actual economics become clear. Direct sales relationships tend to hold up better during slow seasons than relying on a single large buyer. These larvae eat kitchen scraps, coffee grounds, cardboard, and food processing waste without much complaint at all. Turning kitchen waste into inventory that multiplies on its own is about as efficient as farming gets. They convert all of that waste into larvae containing up to 42% protein and 35% fat. A modest weekly time commitment is what actually makes a system sustainable alongside a full-time job. Dried larvae sell for $4 to $8 per pound to poultry farmers, fish hatcheries, and reptile breeders. The residual frass functions as a premium organic fertilizer, selling for $2 to $5 per pound. 2 sellable products emerge from material that would otherwise cost money to dispose of properly. This particular fly does not bite, does not bother humans, and actively drives out common house flies. Selling into multiple markets smooths out demand in a way selling to just one buyer never can. A small operation in 100 square feet of climate-controlled space processes real volume weekly. 100 to 200 pounds of organic waste gets processed weekly, generating $1,000 to $2,000 monthly. The real leverage, though, comes from vertical integration across other animal systems running simultaneously nearby. Anyone already raising quail, rabbits, or fish can feed larvae directly as free, high-protein animal feed. Homing instinct built into a bird's early weeks is the kind of biology that makes a system self-sustaining. Doubling a flock size rarely doubles the workload in the same proportion once a system is dialed in. That cuts feed bills by roughly 30% while simultaneously generating a separate sellable product too. A garage-sized operation clearing thousands monthly is proof this isn't a hobby-scale side project anymore. That double saving makes this system the best force multiplier appearing anywhere across this entire list. The biggest mistake involves starting without a consistent waste input stream lined up ahead of time. Consistent daily production beats occasional large batches when it comes to building a reliable customer base. Locking in a restaurant, grocery store, or food processor as a supplier before building the operation matters most. Sixth, utility pigeons. A system that consistently surprises people once the actual numbers get laid out clearly. Squab, pigeon harvested at 4 weeks old before its first flight, counts as a genuine culinary delicacy. It sells at specialty markets and restaurants for $20 to $30 per bird under typical demand. High-end chefs pay premium prices for a reliable local supplier, since finding one proves genuinely difficult. One breeding pair of king or mantled utility pigeons produces 12 to 16 squabs annually on average. A loft of 10 breeding pairs in 60 square feet of garage space produces significant annual volume. That setup produces 120 to 160 squabs yearly from that modest garage footprint. Classification as a pet rather than livestock quietly removes the single biggest obstacle most animals face. At $25 each, that works out to $3,000 to $4,000 yearly from a self-running system. Pigeons bond for life, incubate their own eggs, and feed their own squabs with minimal intervention required. They stay legal almost everywhere, rarely classified as livestock under most residential zoning codes nationwide. That kind of overlooked space is precisely where the real opportunity has been sitting the whole time. A loft builds in a garage corner for under $200 in basic materials. Reliable supply consistently wins repeat business even when a slightly cheaper competitor exists nearby. Monthly feed cost for 10 breeding pairs runs $15 to $25 under typical conditions. Daily time commitment stays under 5 minutes once the loft is properly established and running. Stacking product types onto one animal is consistently more profitable than relying on a single output alone. The biggest mistake involves buying adult birds without allowing a proper acclimation period first. Pigeons raised from young in a specific loft return home instinctively, since that behavior is built into their biology. Buying adults and releasing them without that foundation simply means they leave and never return again. Fresh herbs consistently out-earning the fish they're grown alongside surprises most people hearing it for the first time. Buying young birds, called squealers, and raising them in the loft from their first weeks imprints permanently. A well-documented system tends to attract interest from people who want to learn it, not just buy from it. 4 separate income streams from one small footprint is a pattern worth noticing across this entire list. 4 to 6 weeks of loft-only time before first free flight locks in that homing instinct for life. 7th, indoor aquaponics with tilapia, not a backyard pond, but a genuine spare bedroom or garage operation. Selling direct rather than through a middleman consistently captures more of the total available margin. This produces both fish protein and premium fresh herbs from the same closed-loop water system together. It runs completely indoors across all 12 months, regardless of outside climate or local zoning restrictions. tilapia convert feed to body weight at roughly a 1.6 to 1 ratio efficiently. That makes them the most feed-efficient meat fish realistically raisable in captivity under controlled conditions. A 200-gallon stock tank produces 50 to 75 pounds of tilapia across a full year. Here is the insight that changes the entire economic picture behind this particular system, though. The real money in aquaponics rarely comes from the fish themselves, according to consistent research findings. University research consistently shows the plant side of the system is where genuine profit margins actually live. Breeding ahead of demand is the exact trap that turns a promising system into a costly mistake fast. Basil commands $2 to $4 per ounce at specialty grocers and restaurants under normal demand. 4 separate revenue lines from one flock is exactly the kind of stacking that changes monthly income. A properly managed grow bed connected to a 200-gallon tank produces significant monthly herb volume. 10 to 20 pounds of fresh basil monthly generates $200 to $800 from herbs alone. Every additional linked system reduces reliance on any single income stream, carrying the whole operation. An industry with more buyers than sellers tends to favor whoever shows up first with a reliable product. Tilapia sales add another $30 to $60 on top of that herb-focused revenue stream. A hidden income stream almost no operator captures involves education built around the documented system itself. Paid tours for school groups and hands-on workshops run $150 to $300 per participant. Online courses built around documented production data represent another entirely separate revenue channel worth considering. Some aquaponic producers reportedly earn more from teaching their system than from actually running it day to day. The biggest mistake here involves having no backup power available for the system at any point. A single overnight outage in winter without backup heat can kill an entire fish stock before morning arrives. A system that mostly runs itself frees up time to focus on the next system worth adding. Backup power sounds like a minor detail, until a single cold night without it wipes out months of work. 6 separate product streams from 4 square feet of space is genuinely rare anywhere in small-scale farming. Budgeting for a generator or battery backup before placing a single fish in the tank prevents that disaster. Here is what almost nobody discusses when covering these 7 systems individually rather than together. A closed loop between 2 systems reduces costs on both sides simultaneously rather than just one. The real money isn't found running just one system alone. It comes from combining 2 or 3 together. Rabbit manure and kitchen scraps feed a worm farm, while worm castings fertilize aquaponic grow beds nearby. Black soldier fly larvae feed quail directly, and quail manure returns right back into the worm bins. Every waste stream from one system becomes the direct input for the next system in that same loop. Combined costs go down, while total output goes up as more of these systems link together. A starter stack of quail plus worms generates $300 to $600 monthly together. Adding rabbits pushes that combined range to $600 to $1,200 monthly across 3 systems. Bringing in bees and a tilapia system pushes the range to $1,200 to $2,000 or beyond. A shortage this persistent across an industry rarely stays hidden once someone actually looks for it. Learning the biology first before scaling up tends to separate long-term success from early burnout. Population doubling on its own timeline means growth happens without needing constant new cash input. All of that comes from systems fitting inside a typical suburban property with no special zoning required. No livestock zoning applies in most areas, no special permits get needed, and no extra land is required. So which system deserves starting first among these 7 genuinely distinct options available right now? Worms make the strongest starting point, costing under $60 and running comfortably inside a closet. They generate sellable product within 60 days, while requiring just 10 minutes of attention weekly. Worms also teach the core discipline of managing a living production system on a consistent schedule. Genuine hands-on experience tends to reveal problems no amount of reading or planning ever surfaces. Combining systems multiplies output in ways that running each one separately simply cannot match. Starting this weekend, rather than waiting for perfect conditions, tends to produce faster real progress. Castings from that first system immediately make every other system on this entire list more productive. Once a worm population starts growing steadily, adding quail becomes the logical next step forward. Real operational experience gathered over a single season outweighs months of research without ever starting. Feeding quail manure back to the worms creates the very first genuine closed loop running on the property. From there, adding rabbits or bees depends entirely on which one the local market pays best for. Two sellable products emerging from what would otherwise be waste disposal cost is a rare kind of efficiency. Testing real demand before scaling production avoids the exact mistake that trips up most beginners early on. Starting worms this weekend and adding quail within 60 days builds more real operational knowledge fast. That kind of hands-on experience beats reading about all 7 systems for a year without ever starting. So here is a genuine question worth sitting with. Which of these 7 systems fits a given space best? City or suburb, available space, and starting budget all shape which system makes the most practical sense. Whether daily income, weekly income, or larger quarterly payouts matter most also shapes that same decision. Drop that answer in the comments below, since every single one gets read and genuinely considered afterward. Matching a system to actual local demand prevents the common mistake of overproducing what nobody wants yet. If this video offered real numbers instead of vague motivation, hitting subscribe brings breakdowns like this weekly. That kind of momentum, once started, tends to build on itself far faster than most people expect. Free inventory that grows itself without extra feeding is a rare kind of efficiency worth paying attention to. A single garage clearing thousands monthly reframes what small-scale production can realistically achieve. Real costs, real income ranges, and real starting points get covered here every single week without exception. No acreage required, no rural property needed, just the right system placed in the right existing space. Vertical integration across systems is where the real leverage in this entire list actually lives.